people haven't forgotten the events that unfolded in 2021. The woes of farmers worsened due to the lack of fertilizer, leaving them with no hope. All they wanted is a good harvest and to feed the country. Authorities imported nano-nitrogen liquid fertilizer and organic fertilizer amidst the growing demands. But what followed was serious concerns on their standards. Sri Lanka also plunged deeper into an economic crisis amidst a growing shortage of dollars. Children remained stuck at homes and those in rural Sri Lanka were on treetops in search of internet signals, while the teachers were out on the streets protesting for their demands. As 2021 draws to a close, people are gripped by fear and uncertainty, not knowing when their gas cylinders would explode. Access to essential goods has also become increasingly difficult, as seen in growing queues across the country. Eateries have even stopped selling milk tea amidst this situation. The year 2021 has seen a multitude of incidents that should never occur again in future. And these are important lessons for the country. As 2022 dawns tomorrow, Sri Lanka will embark on what would be a crucial 12 months ahead. The people will continue to hope for a prosperous year ahead.
Good evening and welcome to Primetime News, coming to live and direct from the Newsfirst studios here in Colombo. I'm Bernadine Chai Singha. Let's now take a look at headlines.
Oil tanks in the Trincomalee oil farm leased to India for 50 years.
නැවත අපේ පාලනයට ලබා ගැනීමට හැකියවීම ඓතිහාසික ජයග්‍රහණයක් විදියටයි අපි දකින්නේ.
Political parties and trade unions accuse government of betrayal.
මේ රටේ තෙල් ටැංකි ටික ඉන්දියාවට පාවා දීමේ මහමොලකරුවා බැසිල් රාජපක්ෂ
එදා රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ ලව්වා කරගන්න බැරි වෙච්ච වැඩේ බලයේ ඉන්න ආණ්ඩුවක් ලව්වා කරගන්න ඉන්න බව තමයි පේන්නේ.
Suspicions over deal to purchase machinery for East Container Terminal.
ඇයි මේ ඇමරිකානු ඩොලර් මිලියන 50ක් මේ සමාගමට නිදහස් කරන්න කියලා කියන්නේ?
Agriculture Minister reaffirms commitment to green agricultural policy. Former President warns against failing to change policy.
දෙවන ලෝක යුද්ධයේදී බජිරි කන්න සිද්ධ වුණා කියලා. ඉතින් දැන් මේ තත්ත්වය දැන් බජිරිත් නෑ මං හිතන්නේ කන්න.
Special commodity levy on imported potatoes and big onions reduced. Gas explosions continue. Fire erupts at a house in Hunupitiya.
Energy Minister Udaya Gammanpilla has said it's a victory for Sri Lanka to regain control of some of its oil tanks. Sri Lanka has regained control of 24 out of 99 tanks in the oil tank farm. 14 among them will be leased to LIOC for 50 years.
Why is the Trincomalee oil tank farm important to Sri Lanka? The Trincomalee harbour, located in the Sea of Sri Lanka, is a natural harbour that is of strategic importance. Its importance is such that the British had planned on developing the harbour into a commercial hub targeting eastern countries. 101 tanks were then built on what was called the Trincomalee oil tank farm between 1924 and 1930. 99 tanks continue to remain until today. The Indian Oil Corporation controls 15 oil tanks based on an agreement signed in 2003. How is the ownership of the Trincomalee oil tank farm divided?
I am glad to announce that we were able to successfully conclude negotiations with India regarding Trinco oil tank farm. According to the negotiated new agreement, 24 out of 99 tanks will be directly given to Ceylon Petroleum Corporation by Sri Lankan government. By doing so, 24 tanks will be released from the commitment to jointly develop with India. 14 tanks, which are presently being used by the LIOC, will be leased to it for 50 years. The balance 61 tanks will be managed by Trinco Petroleum Terminal Limited on a lease given by Government of Sri Lanka. The CPC and the LIOC will hold respectively 51% and 49% of shares of this company. This will be a CPC subsidiary company. Not only the CPC holds the majority of shares, 4 members of the 7-member board, including the chairman, will be appointed by the CPC. This company will be subject to the supervision of Auditor General. The officers can be summoned before the court in Parliament. Parliamentarians can pose oral questions to the minister in respect of the company. As a result of this agreement, 85 out of 99 tanks will be under the control of the CPC, 24 directly, and another 61 through the subsidiary. The LIOC will manage only 14 tanks. Regaining the control of Trincomalee oil tank farm by Sri Lanka is a historical victory.
How will the new agreement be implemented?
The cabinet must decide for the agreement to be signed. Then a person will be vested with the authority to sign the agreement on behalf of the government. Permission must also be granted on the agreement to lease state-owned lands. We can decide on a date only after that. As we are facing hardships at present, we have inserted a clause in the agreement stating that if a fuel shortage is to occur in the country, LIOC must provide us fuel if the government requests it. We have inserted clauses that will ensure energy security. We will have to buy fuel from Indian companies. Although suppliers in Singapore and Dubai had obtained contracts from us to supply fuel, on most occasions they supplied fuel after purchasing it from India's Reliance company. They did that because they cut down on shipping and insurance costs. We can't import crude oil from India. We can only purchase refined oil on credit from India.
How much will Sri Lanka receive from India?
$500 million US. Our chairman has said it will cost about 11 billion rupees to refurbish the 55 tanks under our control. 11 billion is our revenue for 11 days.
Are the moves to regain the oil tanks favourable to Sri Lanka? Views were expressed on this during the Mawata programme on Sirasa TV. Sri Lanka has received a $500 million US credit line for refined oil, but it comes with a condition that the unused tanks at the Trincomalee oil tank farm should be developed and vested with India. If this doesn't take place quickly, we won't be able to import fuel from India. Therefore, the Energy Minister seems to be taking swift measures to do this. If this happens, we can import fuel in January. The services that can be provided by Sri Lanka are being done by foreign entities. One example is the sale of filling stations in Sri Lanka to LIOC. Don't people in Sri Lanka know to pump fuel? In the case of the oil tank farms, the oil tanks are in a good state. This can be used to good effect. It has reached a point where we are giving away everything to receive dollars. The Janata Vimukti Peramuna responded to the comments expressed by Minister Udaya Gamampela on the Trincomalee oil tank farm. He once said that the oil tanks belong to India. The Indian government also rejected that. But still, the minister tries to imply that the oil tanks are owned completely by the Indian Oil Corporation. If the Indian Oil Corporation owns it completely, Udaya Gamampila's predecessors like Susil Premajayanta, Anurupriya Dashanayapa and Chandima Veerakodi wouldn't have had to submit cabinet papers in a different way. They submitted cabinet papers on the development activities that took place for the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation to use it. When the Supreme Court itself has ruled that the Indian Oil Corporation can't use the oil tank farm without a lease agreement, the government, including Udaya Gamampila, are trying to bring all 99 tanks under one entity and to then give it to the Indian Oil Corporation. Udaya Gamampila seems to have taken the side of the Lanka Indian Oil Company more than the senior officials there. They have placed us in a debt trap due to their greed for commissions. we can see that what they couldn't do using Ranil Wickremesinghe is being done using the government that includes Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Mahinda Rajapaksa and Energy Minister Gamman Pilla. While a few families are pocketing heavy commissions, the national assets are at risk.
මේ රට ගොඩනගන්න තියෙන ජාතික සම්පත් තමයි අනුතරයට ලක් වෙලා තියෙන්නේ.
දැන් මේකනේ වැඩේ.
They formed a company with the IOC and sold our oil tanks. That is what simply happened. Basil Rajapaksa is the mastermind behind the betraying of our oil tanks to India. Udaya Gamampilla will go down in history as a person who helped him.
ඒකට උර දුන්න කෙනා උදය ගම්මන්පිල්ල කියලා ඉතිහාසගත වෙනවා.
Indian media has reported that Finance Minister Basil Rajapaksa, who is on a vacation in the US, is to visit India from the 10th to the 12th of January next year. The reports show that the minister would attend the vibrant Gujarat Global Summit. Finance Minister Basil Rajapaksa had visited India in early December when the debate on the 2022 budget was ongoing in Parliament. He had discussed a four-pillar approach for cooperation between the two countries, focusing on the Trincomalee oil tank farm and also an energy security package from India. Trade unions are raising suspicion over the transaction to purchase cranes for the Colombo Port's East Container Terminal at a time when clean transactions are needed amidst an economic crisis. The minister had held a meeting with senior port officials and directors in Kalutara yesterday. We have the details of matters that were discussed at the meeting. This includes expediting the transaction to purchase machinery for the East Container Terminal. China's ZPMC company is the entity involved in this process. The value of the transaction is $250 million. They are trying to purchase 6 gantry cranes and 24 transfer cranes. Arrangements have been made to import this machinery to Sri Lanka after obtaining letters of credit at the Bank of Ceylon. The Sri Lanka Ports Authority has $287 million as reserves. We are hearing that the entity involved in this transaction has been repeatedly exerting pressure on the Ports Authority's management and the finance director to make an advance payment of $50 million to the ZPMC company today. If they complete the transaction today, the payment of $250 million for the gantry and transfer cranes will go up by 20%. We completely agree that the Sri Lanka Ports Authority must bring down this machinery. But the problem here is that the payment must be paid according to the letter of credit only after the machinery is brought down. Why have they asked to release $50 million to this company?
The Consumer Affairs Authority is to hold discussions with both gas companies next Monday. They will discuss whether to reimburse customers for the remaining gas in cylinders returned to the market or to reduce that amount when issuing new cylinders. Senior State Counsel Manohara Jayasinghe made submissions on this at the appeal court today.
Civil activist Nagananda Kurituakwa had filed a motion with the appeal court claiming that the Consumer Affairs Authority and the gas companies had disregarded a court order to recall all dangerous gas cylinders. The Consumer Affairs Authority today informed the appeal court that steps were taken to distribute gas cylinders to the local consumers in line with the court order. It also told court that it had informed the gas companies to recall all sealed gas cylinders from the market. Senior State Counsel Manohara Jayasinghe, appearing for the Consumer Affairs Authority, said the gas companies were also instructed to maintain a maximum of 30% propane in a domestic gas cylinder. The appeal court adjourned the hearing of the petition to the 26th of January next year.
Are the gas cylinders in the market safe? On multiple occasions, Newsfirst inquired into the safety of gas cylinders from the relevant entities. The companies have reiterated that the gas cylinders issued to the market are safe. However, a gas explosion occurred at a house in Kanthimawatha in Hunupitiya, Wattala today. A fire that erupted at that time had caused massive damage to the house. One person was injured.
මගේ බිරිඳ ආල්ලිපේ තියන්න වතුර එකක් ලිපේ තිබ්බ. ඉස්සරහා මට පොඩි වැඩක් වෙනවා මට තනියෙන් කරගන්න බෑ පොඩ්ඩක් අල්ලන්න කියලා කිව්වම එයා අල්ලන් ඉන්නකොට එකපාරට සද්දයක් ආවා. දුව අම්මේ ගිනි ගන්නවා කිව්වා. මම වතුර ගන්නකොට එකපාරට මගේ ඇඟට ගින්දර ඇවිල්ලා වුණා. ගෙදර කිසි දෙයක් ඉතුරු වෙලා නැහැ.
මොකුත්ම නැහැ. ඔක්කොම ටික යට වෙලා ඉවරයි. පිච්චිලා අලු වෙලා ඉවරයි. අපි තුන්දෙනා විතරයි ඉතුරු වෙලා තින්නේ. අද මිනිසුන් නිවුස් එකෙත් පෙන්නනවා තමයි ඒත් මම මෙච්චර දවස් පාවිච්චි කරා මම හිතුවේ නෑ මේව පිපරෙයි කියලා.
A fire had broken out at a house in Vairang Kattuwa in Arachi Kattuwa at 12:30 this morning.
බලනකොට ගෑස් එක වටේට ගින්දර ගන්නවා. මේ ඇවිල්ලා බලද්දි බලන්න දෙයක් නැහැ. සිලින්ඩරේ පැත්තක තියෙනවා. මේ දීප ගින්දර අරගෙන එකපාරට මම වතුරක් ගැහුවා. යහද්දි නිමා ගන්න බැරුව ගියා. වතුර ගහද්දි තවත් ගින්දර වැඩි.
While gas explosions were reported in several areas, long queues were seen outside gas stores today as well.
කණ්ඩක් නැහැ ගෑසුත් නැහැ මොනවාද ගන්න තියෙන්නේ බලන්න ගෑස් 130යි දෙන්නේ තව දෙනවා 650ක් විතර පොලිමේ ඉන්නවා.
ඊයේ පාන්දර 4ට හතරේ ඉඳන් හිටියා හම්බුන්නේ අන්තිම 130යි දුන්නේ. මේ මාසේ දවස් 8ක් කඩේ බලනවා. මම කඩකුලි ගන්නවා බලවෙන්නට.
For about a month, people have been queuing up outside gas stores at the Kadawatha town daily. This was a situation outside a shop in Matara.
දැන් මේ පොලිමේ කීයට යන්නේ වෙයිද දන්නේ නැහැ ගෙදර. අද දවල්ට ඉුවේ නැතුව ආවේ දරුවන්ට කන්න. පොසම් බෝලයක් හදලා පාන් ගෙඩියක් ගෙනත් තියලා ආවේ. බොරු කියන්නේ නැහැ මතෝ ඇත්තම.
But as the queue kept growing, people who had been waiting for more than 2.5 hours had to return home empty-handed.
Meanwhile, civil activist Asha Dilrukshi Pereira, who had filed complaints to the Criminal Investigations Department regarding the gas crisis numerous times, was summoned to the CID this morning. She had been summoned regarding a post she had shared on Facebook.
The post I shared mentioned something about yelling. It is a post that was shared by many Sri Lankans, not only me. This is an attempt to silence the voice of a woman.
We filed the first complaint regarding the gas issue to the CID on the 24th of April. The second complaint was filed on the 30th of November. We filed the third complaint when gas explosions were reported as a result of the composition change. We would like to tell the CID to have a backbone and go after the perpetrators behind the sugar scam, the garlic scam, coconut oil scam and the fertilizer scam.
While the cost of imported milk powder was increased yesterday, the queue that was dispersed by the police recently under the orders given by the president in Mirihana was seen today again. With certain traders selling at a higher price, consumers can barely afford milk powder. In a statement today, the police said that measures were taken to disperse queues to purchase milk powder in Mirihana under the orders given by the president. According to the police, the long queue had formed as a result of the distributor issuing milk powder packets only through a single counter. Therefore, the trader was advised to open several counters. Are long queues the result of milk powder being sold through a single counter?
පොලිමේ හිටියා උදේ ඉඳන් කියලා වැඩක් නැහැ ඩීඑමට සතුටුයි.
යෝගට් ගන්න නැතුව කිරි පිටි දෙන්නේ යෝගට්ුත් ගන්න ඕනේ.
යෝගට් හතරක් ගත්තොත් කිරි පැකට් පහක් දෙනවා.
වටින දේවල් නේ අපි දැන් කන්න බොන්නේ ඉස්සර කෑවේ රුපියල් 80 හාල්. දැන් 100 ගණන් වල හාල් කන කොච්චර වටිනවද? මේ වගේ විහිළු මම හිතන්නේ ලෝකේ කොහෙවත් කියලා නැතුව ඇති.
හරි සන්තෝෂයි කිව්වා අපි ඡන්ද දීලා ගෙනාව රජය ගැන.
හොඳ සැපයිද? හොඳ සෞභාග්‍යයක් ලැබිලා තියෙනවා. මිනිස්සු මේකේ පොලිමේ ඉන්නවා. මෙතියමෙන්තෝ රට සවාරි යනවා. මම කිරි පොලිමේ, මගේ ගෑණියල ගේස් පොලිමේ.
අලුත් අවුරුද්දන මිනිස්සුනේ බුදු සරණයි කියලා තමයි කියන්න තියෙන්නේ.
However, by afternoon, only those who received a token yesterday were able to purchase milk powder as the number of stocks were limited. Many people had to turn back without receiving milk powder.
දැන් ඉල්ල පොහො ටෝකන් දැන් දෙන්නේ නැහැලු.
ආපහු ටෝකන් දෙන කාරවද? එතකන් ඉතින් බඩ ඉන්නේ. හොඳයි සැපයි.
දැන් අපි උදේ ඉඳලා ටීවී එක දුවලා කීයක් හරි හොයාගෙන ඇවිල්ලා අපිට පිටි එක ගන්න නැත්නම් මොකද්ද මේක තේරුම? එක්කෝ හරි මිනිහෙකුට මේක බාර දීලා මේක ගෙනියන්න දෙන්න ඕනේ.
Queues to purchase milk powder were seen in Galle as well. While a shortage of milk powder can be seen in the market, the National Centre for the Protection of Dairy Farmers revealed of information of an attempt to hinder the local dairy industry. The government increased the price of 1 kilogram of milk powder by 405 rupees in the past 1.5 to 2 months. Therefore, it has taken matters to an extent where people had to wait in line with tokens to buy milk powder. The industry has collapsed today. This liquid milk bottle is 120 rupees. This is liquid milk. Minister D.B. Herath, this must be fed. There is no point in bragging before the media. A campaign to promote milk must be implemented. An underhand deal to sell farms around the country of the NLDB to multinational companies and to tighten the grip on local dairy farmers is already underway. Amidst the milk powder shortage in the country, a long queue of people to purchase rice was seen opposite a rice distribution centre in Belligaha Junction in Galle this morning.
අපි පත් කරපු ආණ්ඩුව තුප්පහිම ආණ්ඩුවක් කියලා මේ බලන්නකෝ ගෑස් පෝලිං හාල් පෝලිං මොකද්ද මේ වෙලා තියෙන රට හැබැයි කියන්න තියෙන්නේ 225ම මක බෑ වෙලා ගිය දාට තමයි මේ රට සෙටප් වෙන්නේ. Rice distributors say that finding rice to sell has become an increasingly difficult task. We found this rice with much difficulty. We called 25 mills to find rice. We can't purchase rice for 6,500 rupees. Give us the trade ministry if you can't do the job. With the shortage of vegetables in the market, some have succumbed to the unfortunate fate of theft. A theft was reported at the Dambulla Dedicated Economic Centre this morning. Our correspondent reported that 10 kilograms of green chilies and a bag of big onions were stolen from the truck. When I unloaded 2 bundles of onions and came back to collect the other one, some onions were missing. Green chilies cost 8,100 rupees.
The special commodity levy on a kilogram of imported potatoes and big onions would be reduced by 30 rupees from midnight. Finance Secretary S.R. Artikala said the measures have been taken with the approval of the President and the Finance Minister to provide relief to the people.
Opposition leader Sajith Premadasa met with people of Tissa Maharama as a part of the Manushatwe Charikava program. Those in the government have transformed the country into a coffin and are making themselves the last nail in the coffin. The person with 7 brains is searching for a parlour. The ministers are inquiring into the shortcomings at the funeral. Cabral is paving the way to guide the country's economy into the graveyard. The government has destroyed this valuable country which we love. The welfare society in Siabalandua is better than the government. There are queues everywhere. Everyone is poor. But there are few who are not poor. They are the rulers in the government, including the ministers. They don't have to stand in queues. They have a system of getting the goods delivered to their homes. Therefore, listen to the people's problems. The depleting foreign reserves have directly contributed to the shortage of essential goods in the country. The central bank governor Ajit Niwad Cabral had said that the country's foreign reserves has increased to $3.1 billion. How did Sri Lanka boost its reserve? The Samagi Jana Balawege raised questions on this matter today. Central Bank Governor Cabral suddenly announced that our reserves have exceeded $3.1 billion, but they don't explain how they got the money. Therefore, we have questions regarding it. They have sent some printed documents through Sri Lankan Airlines to Uganda recently. I saw media reports mentioning that they are not revealing the content of these documents, even through a right to information request, as it can't be disclosed. What were those documents? We saw that a copy of a document had been circulating on social media seeking quotations for a container to transport personal assets. Were they trying to bring down about $1 billion through that container? We have those doubts. Is this how they increase the foreign reserves? We wish to ask them to tell the truth instead of lying. They might have wanted to prepare a fake balance sheet by the 31st of December. We wish to ask whether this was done targeting that.
ගන්න ඕන වෙනකොට දෙසැම්බර් 31 වෙනකොට ඒ වෙනුවෙන් කරපු මගඩියක්ද කියලා අපි අහනවා.
The Advocata Research Institute says the government needs to allow the currency to float, among several measures to prevent the economy from declining further. The Advocata Research Institute has said that the government needs to tighten monetary and fiscal policy, free the currency and draw up a proper recovery plan. In a statement, it said these measures would help in preventing further deterioration. The statement noted that the proposed system of quotas for imports will damage the economy even further and increase the suffering of citizens. It added that the system of quotas and rationing are costly to implement and are prone to corruption, and that it will create black markets. Advocata said these measures will fail as it only addresses the outer problem and not its origin. It added that the existing import restrictions are hurting domestic trade, exports and consumers who face rising prices as a result of the shortages.
From tears of sorrow to tears of joy, building bridges of hope for our very own Sri Lankans. Kalugala, Dambulla, Watamada, Hambegamuwa, Neluwa, Gaul, Pokpitiya, Hunnaskiriya, Pilla Kumbura, Balangota, Vagolla, Udavavagama. Building bridges.
Agriculture Minister Mahindananda Alutgamage has reaffirmed his commitment to the green agriculture policy regardless of any challenges.
Agriculture Minister Mahindananda Alutgamage had made these remarks during a meeting with the Secretary and senior ministry officials. He had said that he would side with the country's leader in implementing this policy as it would benefit the country and the people, although his political image has been tarnished. The minister had noted that he had held several ministerial portfolios previously and that the presence of the mafia was high in the agriculture industry in terms of fertilizer and paddy.
Farmers who have been affected by the fertilizer shortage inspected the storage of a company claiming that they had hoarded stocks. Representatives of 4 farmers' organizations in Mahavilachia met the Mahavilachia Divisional Secretary and requested to inspect the storage facility of a private fertilizer company. Permission was granted to inspect the fertilizer storage with the support of the police.
ගොයියට විතරයි දෙන්න බැරි 1500 පොහොර. කම්පැනි කාර්යයට 1500 පොහොර දෙන්න ඕනේ. දීලා තියෙන මේ සහනාධාර පොහොරනේ තියෙන්නේ. මේ ඔක්කොම සහනාධාර. මේ මිල ගහලා තියෙනවා 1500යි. අපි 6500ට ඉල්ලුවක් දෙන්නේ නැහැ නේ පොහොර. අපිට 8500වත් නැහැ ආද පොහොර. මම පෙරේදා දඹුල්ලේ ගියා. මම පැය 3මාරක් පොහොර මිටියා. අපිට පොහොර මිටියක් ගන්න බෑ. අපි ආවේ රුපියල් 10000 හරි පොහොර අරයි. අපි නිකන් පොහොර ගන්න නෙවෙයි වැඩි බලගන්න. ඔබතුමාට කොහෙන්ද මේ පොහොර හම්බුනේ? ඉසාබතුමාට පොහොර දෙකක් ගන්න තමයි ඇවිල්ලා තියෙන්නේ. කොයි කාලේ මහත්මයෙක් ගෙනා? 10 වෙනි මාසේ 10 මාසේ 18. යූරියා නැහැ කියලා කියන මේ යූරියා තියෙනවා මේ තියෙන යූරියා.
The Sri Lanka Freedom Party has said it will submit proposals to the government to fulfill the hunger of the people and to protect the country from a famine. The people didn't spend this year happily. Therefore, in 2022, the Sri Lanka Freedom Party hopes to submit certain proposals to the government on uplifting the country. Our political party has ruled the country. We have an understanding of how things work. We must find out a way in which we can fulfill the hunger of the people. The threat of a famine lies before us. We have heard that during the World War, in the 1930s, the people in our country had to eat a weed called bajri when there was a world food shortage. I don't think there is even bajri today. Therefore, we can't predict the hardships that our country will have to undergo in the future.
ඒ අනුව මොන අමාරුකම් වලට රට යයිද කියලා අපිට කියන්න පුළුවන් කමක් නැහැ.
ගොඩ ජනතාව කියන කොහොමද කිව්වොත් මාර්ගෙන් පෙන්නනවා එයාලා ගැටලු මේ රජය අහංකම් දෙන්නේ නැහැ කියලා.
ඔය ඉතින් ඒක ඇත්ත තමයි.
Chairman of the National Authority on Tobacco and Alcohol, Dr. Samadhi Rajapaksa, told Newsfirst that the National Authority on Tobacco and Alcohol Act No. 27 of 2006 will be amended to raise the legal age of purchasing liquor and tobacco in Sri Lanka.
We are going to remove this under 21 years of age and we will add under 24 years of age. As per WHO the youth is in between 10 to 24. If you ask neurologists or other specialists, the age 24 is very significant in terms of the brain development. The decision-making part of the brain, that is, the responsible part is frontal lobe. So that development, it will end up at the age of 24. So decision-making is really important in terms with tobacco and alcohol. So that is the age a person will clearly understand the pros and cons, or the positive and the negative side of this industry, means tobacco and alcohol. So then only the person can decide whether I'm okay to take this or not. So if we can do this amendment, and if we can get it passed through the Cabinet of Ministers and get it passed through the Parliament of Sri Lanka, Sri Lanka will be the first country to increase that age up to 24.
With a few more hours to go for the dawn of 2022, Newsfirst hopes the new year would witness the development of Sri Lanka and the hardships of all people being eased. In the meantime, several countries have already welcomed the new year. We leave you tonight with visuals of celebration from those countries. Wish you a very happy new year and see you next year. I'm Bernadine Chai Singhal.
Wishes you a very happy and prosperous new year.